Books for Africa is changing the world. It's changing the narrative on the continent. Hope is what this organization is giving and has continued to give and is giving through these books every single day.
I mean, what a tragedy. How many generations of children have grown up without any reading material? They built a library in Uganda. It had a librarian, it had card files, and it had all these empty shelves. It did have a few books given by the British Council, probably in the 50s, and they were hardbound books like this, but the spine was worn off. I was in the Minnesota Book Publishers Round Table, and I said, look, there's this library in Uganda, it has no books. Look at all these surplus books. When they're done, we throw them away. Why don't we just gather them together? So we sent a couple of mailbags to this library, and the seed was planted. It just grew from that.
If children have access to a book, it illuminates their mind and it brightens their horizons. So Books for Africa makes it possible for them to dream and imagine what it will be like.
And that's when we got hit up by a teacher from Kinshasa asking me for a biology textbook and a chemistry textbook. She says, you don't really understand what no visual support actually looks like if you're trying to commit the periodic table or balance the chemical equations with no visual support. Books are technology, they're just old technology.
Our board members are passionate about books, they're passionate about Africa, they're passionate about getting things done. So you put all that together, it's why we've been successful sending books to every single country in Africa. We welcome support from everywhere, whether it be Somali cab drivers or a former UN Secretary General.
The reason a lot of the African immigrants have latched on to Books for Africa is because a lot of them travel back. When they go to the library, they'll see the books. So they come and they find out about Books for Africa, and then before you know it, there's a container going there.
We have a huge variety of volunteers, and we also have a lot of them. We have lots of corporate groups. We have some people from the African diaspora. We have student groups. We have church groups. We try to make them feel at home and give them a reason to want to come back.
The big picture is really important, and we need to help every child in Africa. With 400 million children on the continent and growing, if we grow 5% a year, that's about what the population is growing, maybe even more. We're just going to never catch up. We can't be content with sending 3 or 4 million books a year. We do have to do more.
A child on ground looks to the sky, sees a plane. That plane looks this big, but you always hear from your friends and parents, oh, it's an aeroplane. A book is shipped from Books for Africa, and it arrives in the hand of this child. And what do you see? A plane. And the connection is made. The cockpit, the seats, the engine, food is served. Now a question comes up. How do I get into one of these? Or how do I make one of these? Imagine sending a book to that 8-year-old that becomes 30, and now you wake up, you walk on a flight, and he's the one flying a plane, and he remembers you and says, thank you. And that's where the journey starts.